Drones are now seeing widespread adoption in every sector, from agriculture to transport. Here are the commercial applications of drone technology in some of the industries. Oil and gas. Surveillance purpose at oil and gas site is to provide a safer, cost-effective, and quick turnaround of data. Inventory and warehouse. Commercial drones fitted with a barcode scanner and camera can enhance the inventory management. Application in precision agriculture. Drones help you in data-driven decisions on your farm, aerial photographs of the crop, and spraying crops. Filming and journalism. The world of media has really conquered the idea of using drones to their fullest extent, as aerial footage for live broadcast is becoming increasingly common in covering large areas quickly. Shipping and delivery. Medical drugs and food order shipping could be done within a span of a few minutes, with drones delivering your packages with less error and more accuracy. Law enforcement. These can also be used for law enforcement officials for crime scenes where a more detailed view is obtained, and the drones can also be exposed to highly dangerous areas without the risk of life endangerment. Are you thinking about launching a career as a drone entrepreneur? This is why SG Education Group is offering a certified drone operation proficient program to create drone specialists. The Center for Drone Excellence is the first in the world for drone operators to showcase their best practices and knowledge from the drone industry. Our courses prepare you to gain complete understanding of assembling drones and the applications, confidence to perform repairs, and skills to extend drone capabilities. Get yourself geared up for the drone economy. So what are you waiting for? Kickstart your career as a drone entrepreneur by enrolling in our Drone Proficient program and learn hands-on from industry experts. For more information, email us at training@sgacademy.edu.my.
Hi everybody, welcome to want to know more about the drone economy, or I would say want to know about the drone economy. All right. Without further ado, let me introduce to you Mr. Safwan from the MDEC. He is the Chief of Staff now, and he initiated the drone tech unit itself, and he's the MDEC drone tech lead now. And he co-founded the first drone conference, which I would say the My Drone X, facilitated the drone players, got them together, and it's a great pleasure to have you today on our live show. And of course, our interesting player here, Dr. Shai from Melbourne Sense, many years of experience and research on UAV, and he is working a lot with the government agencies right now on a CSR basis to deploy his drones and the technology across to help our nation in combating the COVID-19. And yes, Mr. Benjamin from Wanan Technologies, and he is from a. We're going to hear from him from a global perspective. He has been, Malaysia has been his second home. He has been a technologist for last couple of years, and right from aviation and to drone tech. And it's again very nice of you to be here to share your opinion and whatnot. All right. Let us try to understand the drone economy itself. What I'm trying to uh, put it to people watching here today is that we all know drones are widely perceived as gadgets of leisure that are sent to sites to shoot impressive aerial photographs and high definition videos. This is something everybody knows. You know, everyone who has a drone is part of the drone ecosystem right now. All right, we can see this during our COVID-19 when we say that we're going to save the nation. So many volunteers came out and say that they're going to use their drone to help us to take aerial photographies, and I mean to embark on aerial photography and all kind of sensors to advise us on how to combat this COVID-19. But surprisingly, when it comes to implementation, there are many other key aspects that we need to consider. So having said that, the drone economy itself, we are talking about the convergence of many technology involving drone, the ecosystem itself. We created the ecosystem. Now we have a separate vertical on drone itself, which is called the drone economy. All right. Now, the Malaysian drone ecosystem is expecting exponential growth, with players defining their role in the value chain and exploring ways to meet users' needs. Some focus of the hardware and software, while others are using as drone as services. Now, in terms of the drone technology itself in the drone ecosystem, how well are these technologies adopted in Malaysia? And I would throw this to Dr. Shahid first. Can you just please tell me your point of view here?
Okay, good evening, everybody. I hope you enjoy the session today. Back to the question is about the acceptance of the technology into what we are doing today. I think most people know about drone nowadays, especially about what you talk about, video, photos, they know about this. But there are other applications as well that can be done by drone. For example, on the engineering part with the LiDAR, and then now we are also doing something that is, I think, something new. We are doing part detection using drones with a magnetometer, what they call this, sensors as well. So there are many types of sensor that can be fixed on the drone that can give services to the relevant authorities or the clients. But then again, there's a lot of challenges that we face with the regulators, with the client themselves, and also challenges in having to train competent operators, as well as what they call this, processing the data itself. So I guess, Dato', today drones are widely accepted in Malaysia, but the ecosystem has to be right. Regulators have to be working together with us, the operators, the manufacturers, the technology, the innovators, so that the government aspiration of making Malaysia the, what do you call this, hub for drone in Asia is going to materialize. If not, I think it's going to go to the drain, you know. So that's the idea, I think.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good insight from your role as a key drone player in the Malaysian drone industry. You see, what I made to understand is that the drone tech players, they all act as catalysts right now for the implementation of drones in our economic landscape. They are considered the enablers which bridge the gap between businesses and drone technology, right? Playing an essential role in accelerating the use of drone in commercial application. Although the basic rules are in place, you know who I'm getting to, MDEC, right? The legal framework around drone is still evolving, right? As we speak, we have drones on the ground, we have drones underwater, we have indoor drones, we have drones who are occupying the space of a helicopter at the moment, right? So with great technology comes great responsibility. Now, flying a drone not only implies compliance with general regulation and drone use, but also with rules of privacy and security. Now, how do you see the government agencies' involvement in facilitating the drone economy? So can you just brief us a little on this? Yeah.
Wow. You borrowed a line from Spider-Man, I see.
Yeah.
A bit, yeah.
Yeah.
So, simple question, loaded answer, right? So, I think to be fair, let me give a brief description of what we do at MDEC, and then proceed to answer the tough question that you have just thrown over to me. So MDEC, we've been around since 1996. We are the agency under the Kementerian Komunikasi, which is Communication and Ministry. And what we do is, we are entrusted to lead the Malaysia digital economy forward. And how we do it is, one, we are advocating the right policies. Yeah. Also, we are involved in terms of building the ecosystem, connecting the communities, as well as putting together growth programs, driving growth programs. So actually, the way I've worded just now is A, advocate policy, B, build communities, C, connect communities, and lastly, D, drive growth programs. So A, B, C, D. So that's trying to put it in a nutshell. So we are passionate about everything to do with digital and technology. In fact, we are passionate about putting Malaysia as the heart of digital ASEAN as well. So we have programs that is to accelerate digital skills, digital business, as well as digital investment. So how drone come about is because when we first started about 2 years ago, when we saw Malaysia have the companies, capable companies, and they've been in the industry for more than 3 or 4 years, that we knew we had an industry, but it lacked the necessary push. So, and then we map that against what's happening globally, and we talk about the growth of drone and robotics, right? So it's almost like you can't separate the two. So we saw, for example, definitely we are talking about fourth IR, and when we start mapping out the technologies under the fourth IR, we saw all the elements are present in drone technology. We talk about big data, when you talk about sensors, IoTs, and everything is there. So of course, that's on the technology side of it. There's only one aspect of it. In order to get, and coming to your question earlier, in terms of to get it to really immerse ourselves and to get full benefit of the advantage given by drones. Of course, we need to start looking in terms of the privacy element and whatnot. So, and I think the point to the question that you made is that there are regulators involved. There are, in fact, Malaysia, we have a few regulators involved, right? And I think that the drone players here are fully aware who they are. to fly, you need airspace, then you get civil aviation, and then you need frequency, then you have MCMC. Then you have, if you're doing mapping, you have cameras on board, you have JUPEM. If you're doing it for commercial, I think eventually MAVCOM, depending on how they merge, will also come into place. So I think this is even not even touching on the issue of privacy yet. Privacy, I think when it comes in terms of when you're flying, of course, with cameras, I think there is issue of privacy there. Yeah, but for now, I think even the first part of it is actually just on acceptance, right? Even before you start documenting something using cameras, then I think is that the public acceptance needs to be there first. We need to address public acceptance. Yeah, we need to address enterprise adoptions, and then also then we start looking into all the other more technical issues, for example, like privacy and whatnot.
Yeah, that was a. I think you were very much prepared for the answer.
No, I'm not.
Prepared to answer. I believe. Right.
Where you're coming from. So I mean, I know it's
I'm going to just touch a little. You see, on the same topic. You see, the further evolution in this relatively cross-platform regulation can cause ambiguity and result in uncertainty in conflicting guidelines, right? How are you managing? You see, I see that you have put a lot of effort on behalf of MDEC to visit all these drone players and put them together to understand their need, on an initiative, with a good initiative from MDEC. But how do you going to put this forward to agencies? Are we coming out with a framework to address this?
So I think eventually we might have a framework or a policy in place, but let's see what we have first at the moment. Yeah, we know that we are aware that our Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia is now revamping its MCAR. Yeah, and I know that they have also been looking around in terms of what's the best practices out there. At the same time, MDEC is also working with World Economic Forum, specifically on drones, and we know too that they have their drone toolkit. So I think we have all these tools in place, right? I think it's just a matter of we need to design the steps before, in terms of how do you want to engage who and to do what. Yeah, I think those steps we are still in the preliminary stages. I think, but I'm fully confident that with the help of the industry, because the industry is going to push, right, and the regulator is going to regulate. So I think with the good combination of the two, I think we should be able to see a lot more progress.
Yes, thanks a lot. I really appreciate whatever efforts that you have put in so far on behalf of MDEC to put the key players together to understand our needs and so on. I really hope that we can expect in maybe in a couple of months to roll out a framework so that we can leverage on this drone technology. Now, we have a global player here, Mr. Benjamin. My thoughts and on drone technology, and I'll maybe you want to put in some of your thoughts in here as well. You see, drone technology has largely surpassed human intervention for faster, easier, and cheaper data collection. What is your opinion on that?
Thanks, Donna. Drones have certainly allowed for easier data acquisition, particularly with assets, the like of rooftop infrastructure and tower infrastructure, for example. It's certainly gotten to a point where it's made some of those inspections a lot safer, but also then the turnaround time for that has been obviously more efficient. One of the interesting sort of bottlenecks that I noticed in that marketplace back 6 years ago is actually not so much the data acquisition, but actually moving the data from the edge where it's acquired out in the field through to where it's processed and where the key stakeholders are, the industry experts that can look at that image and say, that's broken, that needs fixing, and so on. So in terms of efficiencies and replacing sort of human intervention or accessing that data, it kind of shifted the problem initially. that I see as being resolved. And the evolution of the drone industry is certainly through technology and adapting different capabilities along the way, whether it's flight time of craft or capability of flight, whether it's just vertical, multi-rotor hover type capability or forward flight for certain mapping, or starting to get into this point where you bring in both of those elements together in VTOL, and then look at things where you can go and hover down range on an asset and so on. Starts to change the way in which businesses are going about their activities, and then changing the model in which they're working as well. So it's I mean, look, this industry is absolutely amazing. Where at the end of the day, you're answering a question that people have, unless you're delivering them something or ultimately taking them somewhere.
Yeah. So you see, I think most of us see drone technology is more than delivering or capturing some photos and so on. You see, much broader view would be sensor-equipped drones are combined with data analytics and machine learning to make use of vast amounts of information that we can use to curb a problem or to find productive solutions out there. What do you think that it's missing in Malaysia at the moment, that first to put these things together to make a harmonized drone economy in place?
Is that an open question or to Ben?
Yeah, to Ben. Yeah, of course.
With respect to Malaysia, it's an interesting one. I was actually given a similar question that was actually directed at a regulator at the same time years ago, 4 years ago. And whilst it was, the need for going and doing things what is effectively beyond visual line of sight, this is one of these biggest holdups. Drones are great, but when you're chained to a remote and having to see the craft, that's sort of, that doesn't necessarily help solving certain applications that people really need. The interesting part was the industry was asking the regulators, how do we do this? How do we solve this? And they turned around, I'm referring to Australia here. They actually put the problem back on the industry, that it's not their business to solve the how. They are merely there to approve and allow and permit the technology that actually goes and solves that problem. How does this apply into Malaysia? It's building, I guess, in the way, frameworks to allow for certain use cases in certain scenarios. You're starting to see this in different countries, where if the use case is for saving someone's life, for example, then flying closer to people, flying over roads, buildings, infrastructure is permitted. You're then starting to look at use cases. And for example, in Australia, there are deliveries happening and the craft are flying over people's heads, and allowing certain safety cases to be made to allow this. So I think, there needs to be a way forward. So not just operators, but companies building the technology are able to push the boundaries of the technology to then go and facilitate these beyond visual line of sight applications, which may involve flying over people, not just passing by at altitude, but actually hovering above their heads, and being able to allow certain safety cases, boxes to be ticked, that the technology or the craft in that case is actually carrying on board, whether it's parachute systems or the projected incident would be very minor. We're not talking a 1-ton craft. We're talking something that has a very low chance of causing a very small injury all the way through. So it's really also perhaps opening up a test scenario or a stepping stone where that beyond visual line of sight operations can be done with less restriction in a certain area, in a larger area, which involves, I guess, for want of better words, all of the scenarios possible, whether it's industrial, residential, and other geographical, elements. So a lot of this can be, showcased, proven, and then begun to be rolled out. And I saw a lot of this in Australia, where Australia was one of the early adopters for drones.
Yep.
And they opened up all these capabilities, and what ended up happening with that as well is allowing the flights over people to, if it meant saving their life. Yep. Through to what you see now, there are food deliveries and so on going on. Other countries were holding back. I mean, the US was held back, quite tremendously, and then they opened the floodgates, and then they're in the situation where they're also met with these limitations, particularly for beyond visual line of sight, where it becomes an exemption-based approval. There isn't necessarily a specific way forward. And going back 4 years around that discussion with the regulator, I observed this discussion of how do we do it, and they said, look, it's up to the technology to solve the problem. We just regulate it. And I mentioned that one of the biggest issues here is around not so much the technical capabilities required to fly beyond visual line of sight. It's actually when you are interacting with scenarios that you may need to land remotely, and is that going to be safe? How do you know that you can land downrange, and getting that the vision back? I'm not necessarily saying piping back video or stills, but other data may be required to signify that it is safe to land. And where communications becomes limited, this is where it gets challenging. And does that fall then down to the craft making its decision to land or not on its own? As well as interacting with airspace that is, in some cases, uncontrolled. Referencing Australia in that case, we have a lot of Class G airspace, and there are aircraft flying around without transponders, low level, sometimes not even a radio. This is where collision avoidance systems are needed.
Yeah, but Australia is huge, right? Meaning you have wide airspace. Having said that, sorry to interrupt on this, but you mentioned a very interesting term just now, which some of us are very familiar, but not all of us, right? Watching today, beyond visual line of sight, right? So when you speak about that, I can only recall one person, which is Dr. Shai. All right. Now, Doctor, I want to ask you this, right? Do we need air traffic monitoring for drones? Because you see, when you talk about beyond visual line of sight, right, as Benjamin rightly said, we need to have these drones to remotely land, and sometimes to take security measures and safety measures in place. So I want to ask you, do you think that we badly need ATM here to manage drones, and which agencies you think relevant to monitor this? I leave it to Dr. Shahid and Mr. Safwan to give their inputs on this. Yeah.
All right. Whatever you call it, ATM, UTM, LATAS, whatever you call it, we need it. Okay. LATAS, low air traffic.
Looks like so many initiatives are already in place.
Yeah. No, this I've been reading. In the US, they have LATAS, and then you have unmanned traffic management system. They have a lot of things in place. But whatever it is, whatever you call it, you need it today. because whether you want it or not, the technology is going to roll in, and we have to embrace it. If not, you're going to be left behind. You know, Stuart Brand said, technology is like a steamroller. Whether you like it or not, you're going to be the steamroller or you're going to be the road. So might as well be the steamroller, right? So, so government has spent a lot of money to prepare the young generations, you know, to be innovators, to educate them, and then that is not including incentive given to companies, the technology company, to make Malaysia an innovative country, you know. But if somehow or other there is a stumble block, whatever the government has spent billions of ringgit until today is going to go to waste. We have been followers all this while. Why not we innovate, we break the whatever we
We've been
call
technology consumers.
Yes, we have been followers. Yes, we've been technology consumers. So I think it is time now that we have a lot of people which have very far innovative mind that come into place, especially in this COVID-19. You saw a lot of initiative with the sanitizing method, the transportation method, the testing method that come out during this hard time. I think this is the time that we really have to embrace technology and actually bring it forward. If not, we are going to be followers, and we have to break this old norm and start the new norm that is, you know, that work today. You know, the situation, I go back to what Ben has said just now with the beyond visual line of sight. You know, to me, I know it's not going to be easy for the regulators to manage this, because it depends a lot of issue, the privacy, the security, the safety, not just air traffic safety. You're talking about people on the ground, buildings, assets, and everything.
Oh, we lost him.
From operational point of view, yeah, from operational point of view is the NOTAM or the permit, whatever you call it, has to be situational and dynamic. You have to look at the place where we operate. If you're operating in the jungle where there's no communication other than the aircraft itself, MCMC should somehow or other see and allow us to operate on certain frequency that we can produce data or whatever intel that we want. Same goes to CAM. If it is a remote area, there will be no low-flying aircraft. There's no helicopter flying on VFR or anything. In Sabah, in right, you know, the heart of Borneo, there's nothing there. So I think it should be dynamic and situational basis. You know, what they have to do is actually, I think they have to educate the operators to actually know how to evaluate the flights or the sorties that they're going to conduct. Risk assessment should be done. Hazard assessment should be done. All this should be in place together with the emergency response plan, so that if anything happens, the pilot or the operator will know what to do. So having said that, I think the whole initiative of this drone economy has to be directed towards industry. We cannot be so, you know, a closed community whereby only the regulators make judgment on whatever they're going to impose. You see, you know why Turkey is so successful in their drone economy? Because the authorities, the regulators listen to the industry. Authorities and regulators actually ask the industry what do they want, and they implement and adapt to what the industry has said to them. This is why they are successful. But in Malaysia today, it's the other way around. We just have to follow what we do. You know, beyond visual line of sight. I mean, if you talk about drones, UAV, what is the point of operating a UAV if you cannot fly beyond visual line of sight?
Yeah, that's my point too. Exactly.
You know, why drones?
Doctor, I would just like to add up something here. I mean, ask your opinion, and since Safwan is also here. Do you think we should have two sets of regulation? My first question is, one is for hobbies, one is for commercial operators. Number two, do you think we should have a centralized agency to apply? You see, these questions come from a viewer. They have put forward, he has put forward a question saying that he has suggested that we need a centralized agency to process. I believe that the drone players, we share the same thoughts as well. All right. But to add up to the point, why not we have two types of regulation? One is for hobbies, one is for commercial operators. So for commercial operators, you got to be robust, dynamic, and you gotta, you see, like for instance, the COVID-19 issue, right? I just share one of my experience that we wanted to fly for disinfection. All right. Until that night, we are not sure whether we can deploy our team to fly because we have not got a green light from CAM, right? That's because I do understand their part. They need to check with different agencies and so on. But if these agencies can be centralized and can be dynamic in approving this, we can combat or we can address the problems immediately, right? Otherwise, you see, technology is there, but if we are not using it at the right time, that means we are just doing a publicity stunt saying that we have this technology, but we cannot have the effectiveness is not there, you know, to address the situation or to address the problems and so on. So yeah, I think we were engaging on beyond visual line of sight operations, where I think as you mentioned, Borneo and all that, they said it's hard of Borneo, we don't have any flying activities. So I think certain areas to be marked as green zone and red zone so that we get a blanket permit to fly, so that we don't disrupt our whatever operations that we are in. So Safwan, what is your opinion in this? I know you are waiting to say your part of the story here, but I want you to see from both point of view views. One is from the drone players, one is from the government agencies. What is your take on this?
Definitely. I think it's just that we have many hats that we wear, right? I think I've worked with Ben, I've worked with Dato, I worked with Doctor for the longest time already. And I think that I really understand we understand from the industry view where you're coming from. We also have to balance it up in terms of safety and regulation, which is where I think where our regulators are coming from. But I just would like to touch on what Dr. mentioned earlier, which is that you need to have something is based on situational, something which is dynamic. I think that is critical. So we call it sort of like an adaptive regulation, right? So we're not going to be able to have the best regulation or the most advanced regulation because we are still learning. Yeah, but the good thing about learning is that you're learning from something, you're learning from someone. I think Ben gave a good example in terms of Australia is quite savvy when it comes to drone regulation. They've made their own set of mistakes as well. But this is a good thing about learning. You can learn from others' mistake, right? So I think Malaysia, when you talk about technology, is not the issue. Yeah, talking about readiness of our companies is not the issue. Talking about regulation and models of regulation, best practices is not the issue, right? So it's just about how do we actually integrate that all together and make it relevant for our growth stage at the moment. Right. So I think what we are trying to do and coming from now from an MDEC perspective is when we had our discussion with the industry, we had multiple discussion with the regulators, and you have been also part of our industry roundtable. So after that roundtable, which is what actually pushed us to meet up with the government on the 16th of October, and we proposed a global test bed initiative. And the global test bed initiative is, we know that we cannot have a large scale implementation outright. Yeah. So what we are trying to do is that work with our stakeholders, work with the regulators, work with the companies, and to try and see how can we do MVP, a small scale pilot, something that we can put it out there and people can see, and you have a case study which we can see what goes well, what didn't go well, what can we do. So this is our concept of our global test bed initiative. And we are happy to say that we were given the mandate by the government, and the first project for the global test bed initiative is drone tech. Yeah, so I think from a government standpoint, people up top, they already see that this thing, as Doc said, mentioned, that is like a steamroller, right? Fourth IR is either, you choose to be a steamroller or you choose to be the road. So I think that's why we're taking the higher road, and we want to be the steamroller. But having said that, there are things that, of course, we need to pay attention with, and we are continuously, and I think all of us are aware that we are persistently all together pushing our regulators so that they are also aware of the opportunities. I think is that for any regulators, this, whether it's in Malaysia or in other countries, is they are focused on their priorities. And I think this is where it needs to align to not the industry players' priorities, but it needs to align to the country's priorities. Drone tech, for example, Goldman Sachs mentioned is 100 billion worth of opportunities there. PwC in 2016, 127 billion worth of opportunities there as well. There's a lot of opportunities. And I think Malaysia, if you take 10% out of that, that is huge, right? So I think it's just that we want to make sure that it's a big enough slice for all of us there. In fact, for the regulators as well as stakeholders and industry players to pay attention to this particular area. So how we're going to do it? We already set inside. We have a place in mind. We are already working with the right stakeholders. I know that they have also reached out to you guys as well. Yeah. To get your wish list as well. So let's hope that this is a start. 2020, the start of the GTI for drone tech in Malaysia. Let's make it happen.
So thanks for the very diplomatic answer. But I know more than that. MDEC has initiated the roundtable and also has put different stakeholders together. And you have done, MDEC as a unit have done a lot of things for the drone. But
I add a little bit, Dato', just now.
Yeah, Doctor. Yeah.
About the two method of permitting or no time whatsoever.
The hobbies and the commercial drone operators.
Yeah. I think we should have that. That is the way it is. You should have one which you have to apply permit for your operation and or whatever for your hobby whatsoever, filming. And the other one is actually before this, I think in the US they have this FAA 333, which is the exemption. They actually evaluate the company, evaluate the pilots, evaluate the aircraft. So from there, they grant the FAA 333, which is an exemption for a company to operate a drone. I think that is more like it for us to, if we were to grow further in this line.
Dr. Just to jump in there, I thought India, if I look at Digital Skies, right, they still have one authority, but I think they made good categorization between what is a hobbyist drone and what is a commercial drone. I think when you have that kind of categorization, when you have clear delineation between when a hobby becomes a commercial venture, then I think that two sets of rules are applicable. By the same,
I would like to add that, Safwan, when you said that India has implemented that, I was there when they were implementing it. I was working together with the stakeholders in this particular state when they, especially Tamil Nadu, they are very highly populated people, and they are more than hobbies. They are more commercial drone operators there. But the fact is, their first phase of implementing this was they were registering all the drones. You see, first they banned all flying, right? Then what they did was they said that all drones to be registered, right? So everyone who owns a drone to be registered, and they get a serial ID number, right? So it will be tagged with the ID as well. So that is the first thing they did to gauge the number of commercial drones and hobbyist drones and so on, so that they can manage those people. So they just have to apply online to get things done. But they're still struggling on implementing things because India is huge, all right? And we have state laws as well to use drone, and we have a lot of innovators in India trying to do a lot of things and so on. If it's the same method can be applicable in Malaysia, but we got to get this rolling. Just to add to that, do you have the number of drones in Malaysia, roughly? Do you think that any agencies have this figure?
So I don't know whether you planned that question or not.
No, really, no. Why I'm asking you that question is because if we know that, then we can actually plan something out according to areas and the number of usage in terms of commercial drones and so on. So do you think it's possible for them to do this in Malaysia as well?
I think it's possible. So I think because first of all, if you're let's say a commercial venture, then you would have to register your business, and in your nature of business, you'll probably have specified it as well. If you're a hobbyist, you'll probably be part of an association, right?
Yeah.
Just to let you know what we did, and this is again part of our plan. It was never really made public, but we actually was asked to seek whether or not are there any volunteers. I think earlier on in the show you mentioned about the people, the drone enthusiasts, right? So somehow when we had this small discussion within small group of drone players, the question leaked out about looking for drone volunteers, and suddenly and then we start receiving emails, texts, WhatsApp, telegrams. So that number grew within 4 days from 10 to, I think now we're probably about 1,000 plus. People, majority people with drone, people with hobbyists. And I think this is not companies, so the
Flying cameras.
Yes, these are flying cameras. But I think this shows that we have good-hearted Malaysian who wants to help.
Yeah.
So you talk about, when you go back again to your question, whether can we get those numbers? Sure, we can, right? So for the commercial operators, you will either have lodged your application with CAM. You would have, if you haven't flown yet before, you'll probably have gotten frequency approval from CAM. To bring that drone in, you need to get the stamp approval from CIRIM. So I think we have all the records. So it's just a matter of pulling it together and and to understand what is the number of drones available in Malaysia. So these are the ones that we can detect. And also,
so in the perspective of Malaysian perspective or around that, yes, this is possible, right, Safwan? So we can possible and we can manage those. But
yes,
giving a situation like, say, in Petaling Jaya, say we have 1,000 drones, and all these people are flying on the weekend. Sometimes we go to this open area in Kepong, they play the wow, the kites. Maybe hundreds of kites are there. One day you see hundreds of drones in one highly populated area is flying. So do you think, I'm going to ask this Ben, how are they managing that from the countries that he have worked before? How you think they are managing those kind of massive hobbyist drones and commercial drones? I believe that you want to use Australia as a case study here.
Look, I'll use it as an example. It's interesting. The regulators are bringing enforcement in and monitoring, where obviously there are particular restricted airspaces, because they are near a helicopter pad, because it's a hospital or something, or it's a restricted area. They are monitoring using technologies. DJI have their own technology to monitor drone traffic. That only applies to DJI product. That doesn't work for non-DJI product. So that's that sort of drone surveillance element, and then looking at enforcement, whether it's someone doing something they shouldn't have done, they're flying a drone, higher than they should have, or over buildings and areas they shouldn't have, as well as local councils, areas are bringing in, it's a drone-friendly area or drones are not allowed.
So they map this out at the earlier itself, where they can fly the drones and where they can't fly the drones, something like that.
Yeah, it's evolved over the years, and it's gotten to a point where
I see there's some signages everywhere saying that you can't fly a drone here, and then this is not a drone flying area and so on. So they alert people in advance. So that's what I'm trying to say, right?
That's from a local government, initiative on the ground. But then as well, you've got the software, typically, which is used, to control, your more off-the-shelf consumer drones, and that can be engaged to limit the flight characteristics. as well as having software that allows users to check whether, can I fly here? Software. As well as then the regulators going so far as to monitor. There is technology that can do that. And they can not only see where the drone is, they can also see where the controller is as well, to look at enforcement, particularly when there's sensitive areas. Again, look, that there is one product, but again, that's very specific to that particular vendor. There are other technologies that allow surveillance of any craft, and that's something else to have a look at. I guess in a sense, regardless whether it's intentional or unintentional in terms of the flight of a drone, when I say unintentional, whether someone's flying it unknowingly into an airspace that it shouldn't be, or they're doing it intentionally. Either way, that is something that needs to be understood with respect to that UTM layer, the unmanned traffic management system, so that another drone, for example, that is providing another service, a delivery, or it's even urban air mobility. It's has
don't collide with the other.
It won't collide. Yep, and that is a key issue in this UTM ATM space. And so where you've got people flying. You're talking about in PJ, there's 1,000 drones and people are taking them out and flying them about. I mean, look, the reality is, sure, that will happen. And then we'll be in this day and age coming very soon where there are passengers in craft flying about as well. It's a Grab, not an Uber, that's taking you from PJ to KL or out to the airport. And that's something where you've got to look at that airspace management, because it would be unacceptable to have an incident that would be otherwise avoidable. So this is where, not just between the regulators, there's technology that needs to come in and fix.
More like flying responsibly, right?
Yeah, I mean the responsibility.
The company which operates a drone, that they have to fly responsibly. And more like managing them, we have to manage our drones. I think more towards it, right? Yeah.
Sure, yep. But then again, you can get a drone that can go rogue. In terms of you've lost communications and it's just hovering stationary. I've heard stories of craft sitting up for an extended period of time in areas which you do not want a craft doing that, and it could be a problem. So there's a lot of things to look at managing in that sense.
Thank you, Benjamin. See, I'm running out of time here. Don't want to miss this. I'm going to share a screen here. We all talk about drone technology and drone economy, right? So, can you see my screen right at the moment? Can you see a drone elements process workflow?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to share some of the things that I have summed up when it comes to drone technology and the drone economy itself, right? You see, anyone that owns a drone and which they think they can fly a drone, they think they belong to a drone economy. Yes, and I would say we welcome all these people. But in terms of commercial side of it, right? Drone involves, I will sum up into this. This was developed together with my friend Zalizan, who was a geospatial specialist. I would like to address him here as well. You see, if you notice, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different processes, which is coincides. And the first process will be the acquire and reach data from drone, a platform. So that will be a field application where you fly and you get data, right? Then the rest of it is upload and process, build visualization, cartography, view on mobile device computing, and for layman to see what they want to see using a drone. They don't want to know how are you flying it, what kind of technology you use, and so on. So that is the end game, right? Now, in this whole drone element process workflow, only 20%, I would say, yeah, 20% is about flying. The rest of it is about data. All right. Now, I know Dr. Shahid has been doing a lot of good work when it comes to data and so on. What is the difference between someone who having a drone and a hobbyist drone, or probably I would say the very famous brand where people use it right now, DJI? When they fly a drone, they capture data and so on. They consider themselves as building aerial mapping services, and they're building data from it. And what is it? What's the difference between them and the data that commercial drone operators embark on? Can you please explain, Dr. Shahid? This is your ground, yeah.
I think the most important thing is actually the knowledge and education. That is first. I cannot say that some of the free flyers, I call it free flyers, I cannot say that some of them cannot do a good data taking and data processing. Maybe a single geospatialist who operate alone, he can do that, you know, provided that up to what extent the accuracy of the data is actually required by whoever engage them. You see, but the point here is, if you only take data, we're talking about data. We're not talking about other application of drones. Transportation is also something.
We lost him there, I think. Yeah.
So back to my thing. If let's say you want to have a good data, you want to have an accurate data, it does not only comprise of acquiring the data through drone alone. You have to couple it with GPS, what do you call this, positioning technology on the ground. And then on top of that, the method of data gathering, whether it's through photo, whether it's through laser, or whether it's through magnetic wave, whatever it is. So at the end of the day, once you get the data, you have to ensure that the data is accurate and also the quality of the data. After that, when you take the data back, you have to ensure about the processing sequence so that it is accurate and up to what solution that you want to do. Because you have a lot of solutions, the topography, engineer solution, the geological solutions. So the processing parameters of all these data are different. So you have to know the requirement before you even actually acquire the data, so that when you acquire the data, it can be processed according to the end result that you want. So this is I think the most important thing from the beginning. So, and then as you process the data, you can see that you have to do some coordinates transformation, you have to do some positioning adjustment. It also involves some form of Photoshop to get a seamless pictures of the map, you know. So these are all actually integrated into one until you can produce the good data for your client to actually do fast actionable decision, you know. So when you talk about this, I think if we can have operators who actually specialize in certain areas of data processing, gathering, it will be very beneficial for us, for the country, so that we can offer our services anywhere in the world. Because accuracy is, at the end of the day, is the utmost important thing when you talk about data.
Yeah. Can I just join that in terms of segue into a very good topic, which I know a topic which is close to your heart, right? In terms of talent, education, upskilling of people. I think you're doing a fantastic job. I think that there needs a lot more can be done, because I visited the doc's office, and one thing I realized is that I'm expecting 80% drone pilots, out of his 70, 80 people.
Exactly.
But in fact, you have data analysts from geologist background, and I even spoke to one of them and said, before you join this Marvel Sense, what do you think you'll be doing? Oh, I think I'll probably be standing by the roadsides. I'll be measuring heights, right? never in their life they imagine that they are now working.
Surveyors and so on. He has upskilled. To add to what you were saying, yeah, Dr. Shahid is actually involved in upskilling the indirectly is involved in upskilling the local graduates to fit into the high income nation. If you notice that he has upgraded all the surveyors, geospatial and data guys into the drone technology. So that is my point here actually. The drone economy itself is not about, when you picture somebody in the drone economy, it's not about someone carrying a drone or flying a drone or trying to do something. It's also about data. So that's the exact point that I want to make up here. And I think I shared the process workflow to understand the drone economy better. It's not about only flying a drone. I think it's a good career for people to embark on as well. And I think talent development still at a premature stage in Malaysia. Many of good companies out there are doing their job to upskill and also to create talents, which we are collaborating together with them to come into this drone economy with a wide perspective rather than seeing it only on one vertical and so on. Now, just before we end the session, I would like to give room to Benjamin to tell me a little bit about what he has been doing on drone COVID-19 and drone technology. Try to put this together and just try to sum up a little, and then we will switch to Dr. Shahid. Then I think someone we can end the session once they have give their insights. Yeah, Ben. Yeah.
Thank you. With the COVID-19 situation, obviously. With relative to drones, there's a number of different elements that different countries are adopting and bring about, whether it's movement, distancing, social distancing, through to even some testing around thermal or fever detection. I've actually been working on a thermal scanner technology, IoT device, which has a relationship to drones, but also can be separate from, and that's able to look at detection of people running a high temperature, and then looking at where that person is, and then obviously depending on the capability of or whether or not there's a face that's been put into a database, you can look at face matching. That's going to production, and that's something that's addressing obviously when we look at lifting restrictions on COVID-19 movement, and this is globally, around how people are getting into public spaces and into buildings as well. That's that is something that's needed. I've been discussing a number of different things with different people on this. Interesting that there was someone else who brought up a different technology around looking at heart rate detection and people that are coughing and so on, and integrating that into drone. There's a number of different things that are happening out there globally in this space. Increasing the thermal accuracy at distance is something that's very important to be very accurate on that, because at the moment most of the thermal sensors have a lower accuracy at a short range, which is not very helpful when it comes to something like a drone. So there are techniques that are available to increase that accuracy. Look, it's this is something, I suppose, to some degrees, we say that we wouldn't have predicted this coming, and then at the same time, every second show on Netflix is about pandemics that are depicted coming.
People start watching a lot of Netflix movie and documentary related to pandemics right now. and getting panicked. But I think all we have to do is just stay at home and flatten the curve. That will help the nation.
I watch a lot of Money Heist because I'm thinking how to pay.
Yeah, Doctor, I've gone to the second series already. But too bad now they're okay. Let's come back to the topic.
Yeah.
Dr. Shahid, Ben, thanks. Dr. Shahid, I know you're doing a lot of good work. Sometimes I feel bad for the media not, bad for your company, for media is not publicizing all this. I think I told you before the talk, but I like to highlight here to viewers that a lot of CSR work has been done by Dr. Shahid, and he's the man behind the scene. He's been helping. Of course, I was involved in one of the. I know the difficulties of flying a drone in urban areas and doing disinfection and so on. We have two exercises that we have completed, but Dr. Shahid is on a massive scale on giving accuracy. Giving accurate data and maintaining his the good work that he's been doing. Dr. Shahid, can you just share a little before we end the session today, please?
Okay, I put it very fast and short. We are helping the government, the local authorities, number one, on some sanitizing, and then we also enforce in the enforcement of MCO, and also a little bit in a covert mission whereby we are trying to stop illegal immigrants coming from outside Malaysia.
Oh, that's interesting. So I can see your drones in the middle of the sea.
I cannot say that now.
Mana lagi?
And also we are also managing one dashboard which actually manages the each household on their what do you call this health situation, their travel history, their medical history, up to their each and every person history of medical insurance and also travel history, so that we can actually monitor each and every people in Malaysia slowly, even though we start now on a small scale, small area, that at the end of the day we can track back the source of infection, where does the guy goes and where he come from, who does he interact, So these are the things that we have been doing all these days, and also my boys are on the ground helping the authorities technically. We don't really fly on our own, but we help them more towards technical solutions.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. Though you try to sum up in a couple of minutes, but I know it's a lot of work. I like to take this opportunity also to thank MDEC. Especially to Safwan and his team, Farhan, to put all our drone players together. Nobody has done that before. We have our own Telegram channel right now,
yes,
where we have all the drone players, pilots. They welcome anybody related to drone. Any newcomers also boleh datang.
The Abah Prihatin of drone.
Yeah. They're so prihatin about drone, but I really hope they will keep up the pace and they will support all the drone players in the industry. And let's move up to a higher value chain when it comes to drone technology. My take would be we cannot be the drone technology consumers only. We need to innovate. We need to identify good companies out there. We also need to develop talent and so on, and to further expand the industry in other segments as well. Other verticals, indoor drone, water drone. I think now drone can go up to space already, Doctor. Maybe soon.
Hopefully one day.
Yeah. So we have a good place around there, and thank you, Benjamin, to share all your insights and things for all your time. And yes, again, thank you, viewers. I will leave up to you before. Yeah.
Just because you mentioned Telegram, so we will having also email mydronetech@mdac.com.my. And also we're putting up a sub page later to MDAC website. So we will upload all of our case studies. We will invite case studies from all the companies, from all the ecosystem players, so that we can actually share it there. I think it's also not just useful for locally, but also regionally and global. We can do sharing. Yeah.
So the drone tech players, please take note of this. Please, you're welcome to the Telegram channel and also the email. You can email Mr. Safwan anytime on these drone initiatives. I would like to thank all of y'all again. Doctor, Thanks for your time. I
Thank
hope
you so
to see
much.
in the upcoming series if we have the time. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. See you all, guys. Thanks,
Thank
viewers.
you. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.